Hello dears, happy holidays. Today is going to be a very no fuss, no mess video. I think we can all do with a bit of seasonal cheer and comfort, but if you're feeling anything like me at the moment, you really can't be bothered to get the entire kitchen in a complete mess and chaos just for some cookies. So I will be sharing my go-to recipes today, so you can save some time and save some work and save some hassle and enjoy some Christmassy comfort in a very short amount of time. So without further ado, let's go. First up is my cookie recipe. You start off with half a cup of room temperature butter, about 130 grams, a quarter cup of granulated sugar, about 30 grams, and half a cup of light brown sugar, about 100 grams, and cream those two together. What I did here with the sugar is, because I didn't have any actual brown sugar, I used a bit more granulated sugar and balanced out the rest with some coconut sugar, which for reasons I had. Now I'm adding one egg, or one large egg, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I put the egg in with vanilla extract. I think the vanilla extract kind of like made some weird color in the egg. It was perfectly fine. Comes to like a bit of a goopy consistency, which is exactly where it needs to be. And now I've got a mix of about half a cup each of gluten-free flour and oat flour, which is basically just oats that I've blitzed, and mixed in 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and about a half a teaspoon of allspice, just to give a little bit of a Christmassy touch to the whole cookie recipe, because the recipe itself is my base recipe that I use to make all sorts of cookies, because it does come out quite nice and not dry, which is always a challenge in gluten-free baking. Okay, so for some reason, and please don't ask me why, for some reason, I decided to sift the flour into the dough. I don't know why I did that, because having done half of the flour in oat flour, I should have known, like, from the start, that this was not going to go through all of it. But for some reason my brain thought that it was a good idea, so I was sifting. And you can see why it's not a good idea to sift that kind of flour mix, because the oats don't go as fine as flour when you blitz them yourself. Don't worry, I'm not throwing anything away. I just re-blitzed them, and then after the second blitzing also didn't make them fine enough, I just dumped them in anyway. And just mix everything in until you don't see any dry flour anymore. The good thing is that you can't really over-mix gluten-free flour, unlike normal flour where you would have gluten development with over-mixing, and which then would result in a very chewy cookie. Whereas with gluten-free flour you have the opposite problem, that you kind of need to make it not fall apart and not be dry after baking. Again, I don't know why I tried to sift this. It's like a very bad idea. Yeah, I've just given up and just all dumped it in anyway. The weird ways my brain goes sometimes. In my defense, it was relatively late in the evening when I was doing this. And now I'm doing something slightly unforeseen. I'm adding about a tablespoon's worth of applesauce. I can't exactly remember why I did that, because yeah, and I'm adding a little bit of milk as well, which I can also not remember exactly why I did that. The milk was probably because I felt that the dough was getting a little bit dry and a little bit too sticky. The applesauce, the only way I can explain the applesauce is that it was called for in the second recipe and I got a little bit mixed up. Like I said, it was late at night and I was making 2 recipes basically at the same time. So yeah, I might have gotten a little bit confused. But yeah, the dough sort of like gets very stringy almost, which is fine, which is kind of where you want it to be. And I'm just adding some little extras. I've got some half glacé cherries and some finely chopped up marzipan, which is a little bit of a Bakewell tart situation, but it kind of like felt kind of right. You could, of course, if you leave out the spices, if you leave out the allspice and the cinnamon, you could instead use this as a base for chocolate chip cookies or for whatever kind of cookies you want to make. You could add in some cocoa powder and make chocolate cookies or triple chocolate cookies. Right, now I'm because it's quite liquid. Well, it's not liquid, it's viscous dough. It does kind of need a stint in the fridge to be workable. So what I'm just doing is I'm kind of laying out a bit of cling film or plastic wrap, as whatever you want to call it. It's quite clingy, this one. And I'm just plopping the dough in there. It's a sticky affair. I'm just getting all of the dough into the bowl. Scrape off a spoon, which is a good practice. And then just fold up the edges. And I kind of like to twist it shut a little bit, just to sort of keep it away from any potential smells that might fly around in the fridge. And off we go for a stint in the fridge for at least 4 to 6 hours, or better still, overnight. And while that chills, we can move on to our second recipe, the gingerbread cake. Now for this gingerbread cake, I'm starting off with a mix of soft butter and 2 eggs. Now I unfortunately did not remember to press record when I started recording this, so I didn't record the first sort of like the struggle of getting the butter and the eggs to emulsify right off the bat. Here I'm adding, where the recipe calls for, the applesauce, which I erroneously added into the first recipe as well, but it worked out, so it was kind of... And this is a case of do as I say, not as I do. And we've got again a mix this time of 100 grams of gluten-free flour, 60 grams of ground almonds, and 50 grams of oat flour, or blitzed oats, along with a half a teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon baking soda, 1 teaspoon of xanthan gum, 2 tablespoons of cacao powder, and 2 teaspoons of gingerbread spice mix. Now here I'm adding the spice mix a bit late. You can see again, it was late and I wasn't quite paying attention because I'm still doing the whole sifting thing, and the whole sifting thing really isn't. Yeah. Incorporate well. And now at this point I'm adding the gingerbread spice mix to the remaining flour. Now this gingerbread spice mix is from Germany, which is like a specialty there my mum sent me. You could also make your own spice mix by adding cloves, nutmeg, cinnamon, allspice and ginger, all dried or powdered. That would work as well. Or you could use any kind of spice mix that you want to, really, that kind of like makes you feel happy. And it helps with the sifting, with the mixing in of the spice mix, but again, it's kind of like I just give up at some point and just dump the rest of the flour mix in, as we see. So now I'm mixing in everything. This is 30 milliliters of maple syrup, or in this case it was actually honey, that I've just mixed in. And now I'm also adding some like little extras, some chopped cranberries, some slivered almonds or sliced almonds, and some pistachios. And I'm also adding in some rum-soaked Christmas fruit mix. That is completely optional, obviously. Yeah, leave that out when it's kid-friendly. And once that's all been thoroughly mixed in, I'm now lining well, it's basically a baking dish, but it's got the right size. You should probably use a brownie pan rather than a baking dish, but it works, so it's fine. Just lining that with parchment paper and then dumping in all of my lovely, lovely gingerbread cake mix. And evening out, so you've got like, it just needs to be even-ish, so it bakes evenly, so you don't have like one side burnt and one side still raw. That would be a tragedy. And this is now headed into the oven at 180°C fan for 25 minutes. And yeah, back to the cookies for the moment. They have chilled and set and are now handleable without running all over the place. What I have here is a little bowl of water to just kind of like dampen my hands slightly so it doesn't stick as badly. It will still stick, but it will not sort of stick, if you know what I mean. And just roll them into little balls. What I have noticed, though, what I'm kind of not showing you here, unfortunately, but I've noticed that these don't really melt in the oven like usual cookies do. Like normally your cookie, you would sort of like space them apart like that because they just kind of like melt and just run out and sort of form the round cookie shapes. These don't, so you want to flatten them a little bit. And here is our cooled gingerbread cake. What I've done is I've gone ahead and melted a little bit of chocolate for drizzling purposes. And that's now going over. This is completely optional. You can leave it as is, you can do the chocolate, you can dust it with some powdered sugar. And I'm just sprinkling on a few of the chopped pistachios, almonds and cranberries as decoration for a little bit of added interest. Here are the gingerbread cake slices. This is what I mean. Do as I say, not as I do, because the recipe that I used for the ones I made in the video is slightly different than the one that was just seen. They are a lot denser than the one that I showed you just now. And the cookies. They come out really nicely, very soft and very chewy and very sort of like comforting. So I hope you enjoyed the video. It was nice having you around to share this with. If you did like the video, it would be fantastic if you could like, share and subscribe. But for now, that's all from me. I hope you have a lovely Yuletide. If you do celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. And if you do not celebrate Christmas, Happy Holidays. And I shall see you in my next video. Bye!